Jungkook's live broadcast started out as usual. His smile was warm, his voice calm, and he even joked with the ARMYs filling the comments section. No one expected that in just a matter of minutes, the atmosphere would change drastically. Suddenly, Jungkook answered. His gaze was blank, his breathing heavy. ARMYs began to realize something was wrong. The smile slowly disappeared, and without warning, his eyes welled up with tears. "What's wrong?" ARMY's comments flooded the screen. "What's wrong, Jungkook?" "Appa, don't cry." And that's when the moment that truly panicked ARMYs occurred. Jungkook's tears fell. He tried to smile, as if to reassure the audience, but his voice trembled. Jungkook looked down, wiped his face, and thought about it for a long time, making thousands of ARMYs hold their breath in front of the screen. Then, something completely unexpected appeared. Taehyung's face. Whether through the screen, a call, or a sudden appearance that only Jungkook noticed, Jungkook's expression immediately changed. The tears he had been holding back broke out even more. His reaction seemed to suggest that Taehyung's presence had triggered the emotions he'd been suppressing. ARMY immediately went into hysterics. What's going on between them? Why did Jungkook cry when Taehyung appeared? This isn't a normal live broadcast. There was no lengthy explanation, no direct confession. But that's precisely what made this moment so profound. The connection, the bond, and the unspoken emotions felt real just from the moment it happened and Jungkook's reaction. Life ends without definitive answers. But one thing was clear, ARMY knew they had just witnessed an unplanned, honest, and deeply emotional moment. The silence after the live stream felt even louder than before. Social media immediately exploded. Video footage of Jungkook crying was everywhere, replayed, slowed down, analyzed from every angle. ARMY began to notice one small detail that couldn't be ignored. Before the tears fell, Jungkook glanced away, as if he saw or heard something the camera didn't capture, and right after that, his emotions collapsed. Many were convinced that Taehyung's presence was no coincidence. Some speculated that Taehyung had said something. Others felt that the moment was an outpouring of longing he had been suppressing. Especially Jungkook's expression when he barely heard the name made ARMY even more convinced that there was deep emotion behind the tears. To make the situation even more tense, Jungkook didn't immediately end the live stream. He lingered for a moment, taking deep breaths, trying to control himself. It was as if there was a major struggle in his chest, between wanting to be strong in front of ARMY and feelings he couldn't hold back any longer. The comments section changed drastically. It wasn't hysterical screaming anymore, but messages filled with worry. "Appa, get some rest, okay? It's okay if you want to cry. We're here." And amidst it all, one thing felt very clear. Jungkook wasn't alone, but he wasn't ready to explain anything either. After the live stream ended, the silence grew even more suspicious. There was no quick clarification, no explanatory post. Taehyung chose to remain silent. A silence that felt too profound. ARMY began to wonder, was this about pressure? About unspoken feelings? Or about a private moment that shouldn't have been seen by the public, but was caught on camera? One thing was for sure, that live stream wasn't just any broadcast. It was a raw emotion, real, and perhaps unintentionally revealing a side of Jungkook rarely shown to the world. Usually, after an emotional moment, Jungkook would reappear, whether through a short post, a voice note, or simply a reassuring emoji. But this time, nothing. Silence. Silence. Too silent for Jungkook. And precisely in the midst of that silence, ARMY's attention was drawn to another figure. Taehyung. A few hours after the live, Taehyung seemed active, but in a different way. No words, no explanation, just a post that felt calm, but heavy, as if he wanted to say something without actually saying it. ARMY immediately connected everything. The moment Jungkook lowered his head. The deep breath before he cried. And the reaction that changed so quickly after Taehyung's presence. More and more, people believe that the crying wasn't caused by one simple thing, but rather an accumulation of emotions, fatigue, longing, pressure, and perhaps a sense of security that suddenly crumbled when someone very important appeared. What stirred ARMY's hearts even more was one small detail that eventually went viral. Jungkook's expression as the live stream drew to a close. He stared at the camera for a long moment, as if he wanted to say something, but chose to hold back. Then, in a low, barely audible voice, he ended the broadcast. No smile. No joke. No, I'm fine. And that's where many ARMYs felt. This wasn't a moment he wanted to share, but a moment that had already been seen. Not drama. Not a setup. Not sensationalism. But a fragment of emotion too real to hide. Now, all that remains is the question that keeps swirling in ARMY's minds. Did Taehyung come to comfort? Or did his presence actually open wounds that had been tightly closed? And if Jungkook's tears were the answer, how deep were the feelings hidden behind that brief live stream? As time went on, ARMYs began to lower their expectations for explanations. Not every moment needed an answer, and not every tear needed to be interpreted. But that's precisely where the power of the moment lay. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became that the live showed a very human side of Jungkook. Not an idol on stage. Not the always cheerful maknae. But someone at a vulnerable point, and inadvertently letting the world see it. Many ARMYs eventually agreed on one thing. If Taehyung's presence did trigger those emotions, it wasn't because of anything bad, but because of a sense of security. Because only in the presence of certain people can a person allow themselves to break down. And perhaps that's precisely what happened. Jungkook's tears weren't a sign of weakness, but of trust. That there was a bond so deep, that emotions that had been locked away finally found a way to come out. The live is now remembered not as an incident, but as a rare moment of honesty. A moment when the camera didn't pick up on the script. When expressions couldn't be hidden. When feelings speak louder than words. Finally, ARMY understands one crucial thing. Not every story needs to be told publicly. Not every tear needs a reason. Sometimes, simply knowing they're not alone is more than enough. Because if you look back, Jungkook never asked for sympathy. He didn't explain. He didn't justify. He didn't even try to steer the audience's emotions to a particular conclusion. He was simply honest with his own feelings, at the wrong moment, at an unplanned time. And Taehyung, whether he appeared in person or not, became a symbol of something bigger. Not just a figure who appeared, but someone whose presence was enough to shake Jungkook's emotional defenses. That's what made ARMY speechless. Because everyone has been in that position. When we appear strong on the outside, but crumble just because one small thing, or one person, touches our deepest core. The live may have only lasted a few minutes, but its impact was felt far longer. He left questions not to be answered, but to be felt. And perhaps that's why, to this day, that clip of the video is still replayed. Not because of the drama, not because of the speculation, but because of the emotional honesty that's so rare in this controlled world. Finally, ARMY realized, not every story needs closure. Not every moment needs an explanation. Sometimes it's enough to know that behind the camera, there's a human being struggling with their feelings. And there's a bond that remains strong, even if it's never expressed.